Welcome to the Koffeine Cafe, where we don't serve coffee, we serve puppets straight out of hell. I'm Lisa.
And I'm Z.
And welcome to episode 2 of Declassified, a series where we take a deeper dive into mysteries developing and unsolved. Today we're going back to the friendly neighborhood of Welcome Home to catch you up on all the details found in the update. This is Welcome Home, Declassified.
Not gonna lie, I was about to say the Gakananana Fushigi.
We've gotten so used to the 7 school mysteries.
We've gotten so used. Anyways, this update was huge.
Gigantic, man.
Lisa did most of the research and deep diving here, and I don't think she's recovered properly.
I am completely sane.
I actually fear for my life, guys. I please send help.
Yes. I'm fine. I'm okay. I have had sleep.
No, she hasn't.
The last time we were here, we only had a few vague ideas of what was going on. The Welcome Home restoration project had seemingly come out of nowhere. People were responding positively with memories of this beloved show. The team had received some support from a mysterious question-answerer, and it looked like we were getting a sense of something dark lurking beneath the friendly neighborhood of home. And so, after the long wait, we finally have some answers, and definitely even more questions. It seems that the Welcome Home Restoration Projects team has received more materials from the show, from promotional material, merchandise, and even snippets of actual resources from some episodes. A few of these materials even being showcased in an exhibition set up for fans of the show. We also learned that team has received and uncovered the voices of the different characters in the show. And there's just been so much coming in that there are even more new pages dedicated to these, and before I get too distracted, we'll be covering the specifics of these updates later in the video. The team has also expressed gratitude for the incredible and positive attention being given to the project, so much so that the guest book itself has been temporarily closed because it was just being flooded with affection. So, the project and team seem to be doing quite well for themselves, aren't they? We'll think again. While that may be the case on the surface, diving deeper into the site's secrets seem to say the contrary. I mean, we've seen snippets of something sinister trying to communicate to us through hidden messages, codes, and doodles all throughout the site's prologue phase. However, whatever this or these things are, they seem to be more aggressive, as if they've gotten a better idea on how to talk to us. There's almost a desperation behind it. We have the darling of Welcome Home, Wally, who seems to be more aggressive in trying to get us to acknowledge his presence, to be heard somehow. There's something going on with Wally that seems different from the fairly chill persona, but to what end? We aren't entirely sure. The most surprising secret so far, however, has been this site. While we did initially get spoiled with some pages, we learned that getting here was quite a little puzzle. We'll be covering the smaller details of this entire mess in the video, but the gist of it is, whoever is working on the restoration project has no idea what's going on. They don't know why they're even working on this restoration project, as there's no record of the show ever existing. We've seen this before with creepypastas like Candle Cove, but that sort of stayed within a single story. What makes this fascinating is that there's a mystery that goes beyond a single page. This update has shown us that evidence of Welcome Home's existence has bled into real-world interviews, physical and tangible items, and bits and bobs of episodes that aren't just blurs or static. This has led to all sorts of questions. Is this all just a prank? And if it is, why go through all this trouble? It's beyond elaborate at this point. Or is the sinister nature of the show more supernatural in nature? And if so, what caused all of it? Did it exist and was paranormally wiped from existence, or did it just pop out of the gates of hell or something? While we don't have all the answers, we are a step closer to almost sort of figuring out what happened. I don't know, maybe, perhaps. There are a few new characters introduced to the story as well, and no, we don't mean in the show. For one, we have a few more details on the mysterious question-answerer, sorta. We know that they're a successful museum curator with an interest in the Welcome Home Restoration Project's efforts, but there's no mention of any prior project they've created, so we don't know what they're like. We know they came in at a time when the team or individual was questioning whether the project was actually doing well. We can't say that they're the ones sending the items in the first place though, so yeah. The secret site introduces us to the character working on the restoration project. I know some people have mentioned that this is the question answerer themselves, but as of writing the script, I initially thought that this was the person working on the project. So while the project introduces this vague idea of a person as someone who is passionate and excited, a fan of the series, this guy seems to be going off the wall, wondering where all these items are coming from. I mean, he's freaking out. They've asked other folks working on the project/exhibition, and they all have no recollection of the show ever existing. This changes so much from what we already know. If the show hasn't existed before, where did all this fanfare come from? So, what are your thoughts on what's going on so far?
That was quite a lot.
Yes.
I still can't get over the fact that like there's so much in this update, and like Clown giveth, but Clown also taketh. One of the things that really struck me was essentially the guest book was kind of either like it wasn't removed, right? But it was like halted because of all the submissions and everything.
Yep.
Yeah. And later on, I'm pretty sure Lisa's going to be talking about updates to that. Like, there's still quite a lot of nope. There we go. There's still quite a lot of updates. Yeah. I'm still getting used to these toggles, but yeah, there's a lot of updates on the guest book, but at the same time, there's other things that make me curious about everything, like the incentive to change that. Who is the question and answerer, and like why? What is going on? Who is this person? Why take up this project in the first place?
Yeah, right. That's something like that we sort of learn about a little later on when we cover the updates, but it's interesting. What do you think of like the question answerer and the person behind the website itself as like a little clearer characters? Well, sort of clear, not very clear at all actually, but sort of.
It's hard to say because we still don't know a lot about them.
That's true.
Yeah, the guy probably needs a break. They seem very stressed out. That's one thing. But other than that, there's really nothing. From chapter 1, or at least the prologue, we get a sense that they don't know much about Welcome Home. They're just really curious about it. And there's a weird pain in the undertone of the text from before the update.
Yes.
And now we get to see a clearer sense of this pain.
Yeah, it feels different.
It feels very different, and I wonder actually, where is this going to go in the future?
Yeah. As mentioned earlier, there's so much new content that old pages have new things and there are completely new pages added. So here's a rundown of everything new. The merchandise page is a hefty guy with a lot of content. Physical and tangible content. Well, as tangible as they can be for us virtually. We learn of a new company aside from the Playfellow Workshop that has worked on Welcome Home called Marlowe Inc., who is in charge of the toy merchandise. So here's a quick rundown of the merchandise. We have the It's For You talking telephone, where apparently each puppet had their own style of telephone that you can play with and use to call each friendly neighbor. We even have a little demo from the Wally phone specifically of what each character would say when you pressed each button, except for the Wally button, which has apparently been taken offline because something was wrong with that, supposedly. There's the rainbow letters from the Eddie Dear playset from an unknown manufacturer. Fascinating. Which is a little letter writing / activity set where you can pretend to send your mail to your favorite characters. We even have samples of what these letters from the different characters would say when they replied back. There's a recording of a storybook called Eddie's Big Lift, also published by Marlowe Records, with a quaint little story where everyone in the neighborhood tries to dare Eddie into lifting everyone. Every single one. There's also a number of unknown records titled Welcome Home, Drawing with Wally Darling, and The Fun in Your Frown by Marlowe Records. Unfortunately, these colorful vinyl records were damaged in some way, and so the only sound we have is this. We even have cereal. Cereal, well, we don't exactly have the cereal itself, but the promotional goods for it. Okay, not goods as in plural, but like the singular standee of Wally Darling holding the box labeled Crispy Sweets, which admittedly I would buy in a heartbeat. There's a coloring book called Wally Darling's Coloring Book, but unfortunately we only have the cover and one of the many illustrations. But they specifically say that they're still restoring the other ones, which makes me think that the other pages might still be in a state of disrepair, much like that first Julie fan family illustration. Apparently it was also 30 cents, that's neat. Lastly, we have the mail-in time day Valentine's Day cards, which we've already seen from the prologue. The media page holds a lot of new, juicy material. We have a segment from a live interview done with Wally and Barnaby in front of what we can assume to be a live studio audience. This is not unlike skits made with Elmo on late night talk shows and whatnot. Unfortunately, there's no video footage, but my guy, this is a lot. We have animation cells from a segment called Julierella, which shows that even during a live-action puppet-centric show, we got some pretty creative and lively segments just like these. It's likely that this came from a bit involving Sally Starling putting up a play based on Cinderella with Julie as the lead. One of these snippets even include a photo of it playing on a television. There's a demo for a song called Just So, performed by Frank and the rest of the neighborhood. This isn't exactly the full song, nor is it the final track that made it into an unknown episode, but it already shows a lot of who Frank really is to himself and the other neighbors. There's even some concept art and sketches of how the musical number itself would look. There are other bits of audio with no particular context, so it is unknown whether they were going to fit in episodes, storybooks, radio shows, or anything else. But these include conversations with Howdy, Barnaby, and Wally in a bit called Hot Dogs, another with Julie and Frank called Tomatoes, and Eddie, Sally, and Poppy called Acting. I don't think we can play all of them here, but thankfully there are transcripts of all the audio on a separate page. The Playfellow exhibition is a showcase of the exhibition that was previously mentioned in the prologue, with the help and collaboration of the question answerer. A lot of what's featured here was actually already mentioned in the previous pages, as it looks like these discoveries are what made it to the exhibit itself. There are, of course, a lot of other new things, and upon clicking each and every individual image from the gallery, we get this little description. Pretty fun. We also learned that Welcome Home had a 4-year run and was abruptly pulled from airing in 1974 with no explanation and no given reason. We also have our word from the question answerer with some interesting perspective of what they think of Welcome Home. It looks like they don't really know too much about the show, and that supporting this project seems to help them understand and investigate what's going on. Like, it comes across as excitement and wonder, but given what else we know, maybe their investigation is a little more serious than what the surface shows. Okay, I can't believe I forgot this one, but if you zoom out of every single page, you get these guys looking right at you. What's going on there, huh? Before we get to like the craziest page, looking at some older pages will be brief and only cover any newer significant details. The main Welcome Home page is so far just the same, except we've got different art on the bottom and some doodles charmingly drawn around. We'll also get to that later. There's the stickers page that has even more cute art, whereas the prologue had a few charming gifs, so that's exciting. The neighborhood page has so far also remained unchanged except for the additional voices for each character page. And the news page features a summary of updates with a few notes that we found fascinating. Despite the fact that the team had found the voices for the characters, there appeared to be no names for a voice cast. We also learned that the doodles from the guest book were not the work of the person handling the restoration project. In fact, they weren't even aware that it was happening. What's even more fascinating is this update. Whoever is handling this is starting to crack. So many guest signatures. So many of them are trying to communicate. What are you telling me for? Do you think I can answer? What are you trying to do to me? I'm closing that guest book. I'm not playing this game anymore. The ringing is enough. So far, the most intriguing and the biggest update is the staff-only page. I wasn't sure whose perspective this was in before. I thought it was the person working on the project, but according to some on the Welcome Home community, this is from the question answerer. But either way, there is a lot to unpack here. For one, we can begin with the main text that shows that this guy had a dream of working on this project, the exhibition. He talks about how it seems that he's haunted by Wally Darling, how he keeps getting phone calls from unknown numbers with no record of calls or messages ever coming in. There's the image gallery of what appears to be the exhibition in shambles, casual notes written with hidden messages under blacklight, emails with blacked out text, blobs of what we can assume to be ink is splattered everywhere. Honestly, while this answers the question of how messed up is this going to get, we're only left with so many more questions like what the actual fuck. Moving to the doodles. We've seen these guys before in the guest book, which has been ironically closed from further messages, but there's more of them now, a few of them even being drawn in as soon as we entered the site. Now in the prologue, opening these on a new tab would simply reveal that the file names were direct responses over the guest book logs it was drawn over, but this time, well, they're more direct correct in calling out to us, or, well, you, the viewer, specifically. These would now lead to a GIF of a vinyl record and an audio track. A couple of folks over on the Reddit and Tumblr have tried to piece them together in a cohesive order. We aren't exactly sure whether these ones are right, but the general idea is understood. As we can see, Wally starts off fairly chill, but as it goes on, he seems to get more and more desperate. He's not just asking us to witness him, he wants to be let in, not out. In. Aside from the familiar doodles as well, there are also a number of creepy crawlies scuttling around the various pages. These bugs would also lead into some interesting pages, that being what appears to be snippets of an actual episode of Welcome Home, I think. But there's something off about them. I mean, sure, we can hear the different characters speaking, but for one, we don't actually see them. We can assume, as many have, that these are glimpses from Wally's perspective. Another thing is that we aren't entirely sure if this was done as an on-camera episode. Given how casually they speak, given how abruptly it ends, it feels like these guys were almost alive even outside of the camera and we're just watching their lives when things are off-air. Lastly, the video and audio appear to distort as soon as one of the other characters mention Wally's name. We can't exactly play all of them because they are kind of varied in length and there are still some efforts to organize a possible order in which all of this happens. It is fascinating, however, as we seem to get a better idea of who these characters are based on their interactions with each other. Sally Starling's dramatic personality, Julie's excitement, Barnaby's silliness, Howdy's friendly demeanor. We even get to see Frank's intelligence and concern and Poppy's nervousness and kind-hearted nature.
Whew.
Yes.
Oh my god. Okay, so now that you've compiled everything, guys, this is the first time I'm seeing Lisa's work right now. That took my breath away. That was a lot.
So you can see why I've been going, why I've been spiraling.
Yeah, I am so... Wow. Anyways, there was a lot to unpack there. You've unpacked most of it, but I have questions.
Yes.
Like, as alluded to earlier, the guest book, we get to see the ramifications of the guest book to the question answer. This is really taking a toll on them. My question is, why? Like, what did they say about the guest book?
Something about I'm taking this down, enough is enough, that's the vibe.
Why? Most of the messages posted there were all positive. Are they seeing something else?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. They're seeing, like, the doodles.
I'm not even sure if it's the doodles because, like, most of the doodles are pretty harmless. There are a few that is questionable, but, like, most of them are good.
Actually, even the doodle messages aren't so bad, so why? What's happening to them?
Right. And there's also that other thing with the staff-only page.
Yeah.
Like, holy crap, what's going on there? It looks like the website, but I guess that is what the question answer may be seeing. Like, this is just a small snippet. This is my theory, okay?
Yeah.
This is just a small snippet of what the question answer sees. Like, we see the colorful, bright, all that website. They see dark, macabre, weird, glitching
ink
blob everywhere. And I think that may seriously be the thing that is being called upon here. Because there's no rhyme or reason why they would be acting this way towards such an innocent website, you know?
Yeah. It looks fine. The website looks fine.
Yeah, that's the thing. The website looks great, and yet it's not. And we can also see this actually in the other doodles that seems to be bleeding into the other pages.
Yeah, it's bleeding into the other pages.
Why? Why is it bleeding into the other pages? Like, it seems like whoever was trying to communicate with us in the prologue is now trying to communicate with us again, but now it's more one-sided.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that begs a question. What's the question and answer seeing?
Yeah.
Right?
Both, what is the question answer seeing on the site and in real life? It looks like it's affecting their daily life.
Yeah, like, is it kind of like one of those, they see, like, Wally everywhere in the peripherals, all that? Like,
ooh, yeah.
They have 7 days to live before Wally comes out of the TV or something.
Yes, excellent.
No, but, you know, what is going on? Plus, what is up with all the bugs?
The bugs were so interesting.
They
Why
were
the
cute.
bugs? Oh, I love them,
They
yeah.
were cute. But was there any allusion to bugs in the first installment, like the prologue? The only other thing is that I can think of is Frank, which
And Howdy.
we do and Howdy, and we do have a theory about that later. But why?
I mean, like, it's a lot to take in, and handling such a fascinating mystery. It's a lot, and it's actually pretty inspiring. It's definitely inspired us to create more and to write more, but it is a little daunting. But you want to know what helps with that? World Anvil!
Oh God.
Yes, that's right, World Anvil, your one-stop shop / service to writing, building, and organizing your stories and worlds. Keep track of your characters, settings, plot, and even timelines with their many, many features. And with the code CoffeeNYT, you too can check out everything they have to offer for 40% off of your first year. So check out the link in the description to check that deal. Now back to the video. So, obviously, an update like this would spawn a lot more, and I mean a lot more, theories. But we're also working with our past theories and seeing how they've sort of changed, shifted, or maybe built upon. Frank's theory. This theory sort of comes from the trails of previous theories from our first video, but given some additional details in the update, it could imply something more. So the idea here is that the other puppets outside of Wally Darling are being held against their will, in a sort of puppet purgatory. That's not new. But what is new is that Frank plays a major role in sending out a call for help, or generally trying to communicate with us. Evidence number 1, remember this image that we thought wasn't canon? Well, it's back. And it's better than ever. Well, sorta. It didn't exactly change, but it was featured in the exhibition right here. This is an important piece in our puppet purgatory theory because of the fact that it showed Frank sort of surrounded by puppet body parts, giving this grotesque metaphor of being surrounded by the dead or something. But now that we look at it again, look at what he's holding. A small red note. Why? What does it contain? A little red letter to whom? Perhaps to send it to the outside world? A letter holding the cries and woes of all the puppets around him? Of all the puppets before him? Or was it a message from the outside world? Who is it from? What does it say? What secrets do you hold? I'm going insane. Evidence number 2. This is a small piece of evidence, but if we go back to the animation cells from Julie Rella, very specifically the one on TV, let's up the brightness and check out what's over there in the corner. Oh look, another phone. As far as we know, the team has only managed to recover / receive Wally Darling's phone, but this appears to be Frank Frankly's. We also find this phone in the staff only page, with complaints from this mysterious person that the phone keeps ringing. There's something clawing at a staff member. There's another entity, maybe, I don't know, that's trying to establish some form of contact. How can we be so sure that it isn't Wally? How can we be so sure that it is Wally? Well, for one, we know that Wally uses art through doodles. And yes, he's used the phone, but that's the one time, and it was on his phone. And he's already trying. But Frank? This is Frank's phone. We're getting glimpses of him appearing to be in trouble, but we haven't heard a peep. Maybe he's just getting started. Evidence number 3. Remember those cute little letter writing activity set things? Well, one of those letters actually comes from Frank. Now we don't know who it's addressed to, or if it was part of a completed kit, like it's already there, since it's actually fairly normal looking. There are also letters from Howdy and Barnaby, but aha! What's this? It's an illustration of a bug from Frank Frankly, who wants to show Wally what the creepy crawlies look like. This particular piece of evidence kind of goes hand in hand with the dual Wally theory, but even if these are scenes, bits, and pieces of other puppets and Wally's perspective, could it still be Frank that's trying to send us these messages? That they're Wally's perspective, sure, but they're showcasing the lives of the other puppets? Is Frank trying to show the outside world a bit of his world?
Frank. Honestly, like this, seeing all of that, like the first time around. If you guys want to check out us exploring the actual update, we have a VOD of the live stream somewhere on our channel. But after viewing that, the first thing I latched on to was Frank and the idea that maybe Frank is the one sending all these things to the question and answer.
Right.
It's weird that like there seems to be some connection there. It's very coincidental, and like there may be bugs in the letters. 2, there's Frank's phone, because the only thing that we get to interact with is Wally's phone.
Frank's phone drove me nuts the second I saw it.
But then.
Yeah.
The third one was the picture. The one of Frank in Purgatory now being canon. Or at least I think it's Puppet Purgatory. It looks like Puppet Purgatory. Like, it's just limbs, like puppet limbs touching his face. That's creepy.
Yeah, it could be Puppet Hell for all we know.
Yeah, Puppet Hell. I don't want to see what Puppet Hell looks like. And given the context that this exhibition is supposed to be the Playfellow Workshop's, like, remnants, why is that there? Think about that. What kind of children's company would make such a terrifying image official?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, who was that supposed to be for? Because, like, we are fans of a horror puppet project right now, but not those kids watching it when they were kids. That would traumatize them.
It would make them make creepypastas of Welcome Home, you know?
Exactly. But then it begs a question. When was it made? You know? Like, when was it made? Because if it was recently made, why was it made? And who made it? If this was just a piece of artwork from the person sending it, that's a weird, like, submission, weird joke there. I don't know what's going on. But if you look at it from another perspective, what if this is a snippet of the person sending it, which paints everything in a new perspective? If Frank is the one who sent this, is all of this, the website, gallery, everything, was this just a misunderstanding of the initial call for help, you know? Like, Frank is calling out for help.
Yes.
But the question and answer took it as something else.
A threat.
Not necessarily a threat at first. Just, ooh, this is a cool little project. And then suddenly, because they didn't take it seriously enough, it's now bleeding into reality.
Oh, and it's freaking him out. Like, yeah. There's so much.
And Frank's just kind of like, bro! You know?
I'm trying to talk here.
Yeah.
The dual Wally theory. This is a theory that has come up before and one that we not only stand by with the newer developments, but can also add on to. I guess to avoid any confusion, we can call this darker and presumably evil Wally as Other Wally. So we've seen this Other Wally's influence since the prologue, with the regular Wally being either unresponsive or calmer, less ominous. In this new update, however, it appears that we see even less of him, just a bit. This is more or less a sort of confirmation of the fact that Wally is either split or there is an entity, wherever its origins may be, possessing our little darling. Evidence number 1. The obvious first evidence is of course the doodles. It's already established from the prologue that he communicates via the doodle. Honestly, me too. But not only has this first chapter confirmed it, it's also vastly elaborated on. We aren't just working with file name responses anymore, he's speaking to us. These doodles are now spreading to other pages with no prompt to respond to. He's asking us to respond back. They're being drawn in as soon as we enter some pages as if his attempts of communication are happening real time. He sees us real time. He's asking us to see him right now. Evidence number 2. This is the only time Wally has used the phone to talk to us, and phones are quite a prominent icon in Welcome Home. Using Wally's phone on the merchandise page, it sounds like everyone can't hear you on the other side, but it's played off as everyone thinking, oh, it's Wally acting weird, or you playing a little silent prank. It's weird. But no, Wally knows you're on the other side. He can see you, but he can't hear you. This Wally sounds different from the Doodle Wallies, actually. It sounds friendlier, still a little ominous, but there's no threat or irritation coming from him when he can't hear us. The other Wally, however, is furious by the end of the whole Doodles thing, so perhaps the regular Wally is also trying his best to contact us. Maybe he's a little confused and trying to figure out what's happening himself. Evidence number 3. As we mentioned, we also have videos from the bugs. Like, yeah, we mentioned this in our Frank theory, but it's possible that this could still play into the dual Wally theory. Well, obviously because it's from Wally's perspective, but the question now is which one? There is the possibility that either one is the regular Wally, at least up until his name is called. Why? It glitches out when Wally's name is called in terms of audio and video, as if his senses or his memory gets cut. If what we're watching is regular Wally, then maybe once his name is called, he goes back to his on-air character and he just blanks out. If it's the opposite and it's the other Wally we're watching, that means that we don't get a chance to hear or see regular Wally as he is on air when he talks to other neighbors. We're only allowed to hear or see this other Wally. Still, this opens up way more questions than answers, really.
Okay, so little disclaimer here, because I will be building up on this theory a bit more with evidence that wasn't shown in this video because it's a lot. Lisa and I decided that it will be best to just put it in the debrief. And the evidence of referring to is the videos.
Yeah, mostly because as of scripting/recording, I hadn't found everything, like all of the videos yet. So it's a lot. It's coming though. Don't worry. There you go.
Yeah. Okay, so the dual Wally theory has been heavily hinted in this update from the doodles, the weird aggression between the audio and the other texts, I guess, that you can see sprinkled around the website.
Yeah.
But the dual Wally theory can be seen through the videos themselves. Because it seems like the videos themselves are through Wally's perspective. The angle of the cameras are very weirdly placed. That's one. It's as if someone is kind of just staring blankly into space. Now, when Wally's name is called, it starts to like cut off because it means that Wally is going to respond. The thing is, there are points in the video, specifically the one in Poppy's house, where we get to see Wally interacting with an unknown character through a board game. Poppy is busy cooking, so it can't be her that's playing with Wally. Who's playing with Wally? My theory is that that's actually the other Wally. Whether it be home or like just an eviler Wally, I don't know. But my theory is that that's the other Wally. And that Wally is the Wally that takes over whenever his name is called. Right? So essentially, the real Wally is silent, reserved, chill, happy. The kind of person that we see in the doodles for the most part.
Yeah.
But from the audio logs, and from the other more aggressive doodles, we get to see that like there is another entity there that's more aggressive, more outwards, more vocal, which kind of adds to the idea that the reserved Wally is the ones that we see in the video itself. When it cuts off not because Wally's being interrupted, but because the shift in between the two Wallys happen. The person that needs to talk, that needs to interact with the other puppets, is the other Wally.
Yeah.
The other thing is the idea of where and when are these videotapes being taken up?
True.
Because there's some implication that this is happening during the one script that we found in the website talking about Eddie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the episode where Eddie lifts everything.
Oh, just as a disclaimer, we are only assuming that this had been translated into an episode because it comes out as a storybook.
Knowing behind the scenes of like cartoons and all that, a lot of unused scripts tend to either turn into bonus episodes, turn into books, all that. Like, you don't want to just waste stories.
That's true, yeah.
Right? So if this was a storybook, it could have either started out as a script that was later used, or it could have been like something that was filmed, but something went wrong, so they just turned into a book before everything was canceled. Or this could have been like, book first and then translated into real life. Whichever order it was, in the end of the story, Eddie lifts home.
Oh yeah, I actually covered this a little in a theory later. Ooh.
Yes. Is this where we first see the evil Wally, the other Wally, taking dominance over Wally? Because if this other Wally is indeed home, this would be the perfect incentive for home to take over completely, which will lead into the next theory, actually.
Homecoming. The Homecoming theory is new for us. It focuses a little more on what's happening to the show and the project right now. The idea is essentially that Home, or Welcome Home, is slowly bleeding out into the real world. Not just as a show, but everything in it. Home itself and the characters. It's kind of similar to the idea of the old cast and crew becoming part of the show through some weird puppet purgatory, but instead it's the reverse, where the lives and sentience of the puppets are trying to make themselves real. Evidence number 1. This is a small piece of evidence, but remember that interview with the live studio audience? We only really got an audio clip of it, but there's something else off about it. For one, it ended on a really weird note. It sounds like there's static and noise coming around the end of it. Could something have happened during the filming of said interview? Another thing, why do we only have the audio of it? I mean, I get it's hard to get a hold of some footage given it's, a restoration project, but could this be an attempt from Welcome Home and the unnamed entity to seep itself into our conscious memory as something that exists outside a show? What? Oh. If we take a look into the secret site or the staff only page, we can see that Welcome Home has never existed in the first place, somehow. The person here, perhaps the question answerer, says that every person they've asked has no recollection of the show at all. It could be that this restoration project itself is a means of bringing it into life, of bringing it into the real world. If we can see it as something that was once fiction, perhaps that can be the first step into becoming non-fiction. The question answerer has either become a host for this thing, or to sort of bleed out into reality, or Bali maybe, or the question answerer could be the only person who realized something is wrong and is being silenced somehow by the site to keep up appearances. So, another aspect we see on the staff-only page is weird goop. A lot of the materials that were given to the restoration project, this stuff from the show, are said to be covered in a strange goo ink thing. It's seen on envelopes and pages. These are the damaged goods. The team says they're restoring, but they never really give any reason as to why they're destroyed. We can even see photos of this ink being splattered all over the place in what looks like the Playfellow exhibition. Perhaps the process has already begun.
Okay, so I'm not entirely convinced that this wasn't a real show to begin with.
Alright.
I mean, obviously, it's not a real show in our universe, but the universe this takes place in, I'm not convinced that it's not a real show.
Ooh.
Because where would all these stuff come from?
Yeah, right?
At the very least, I would say that this might have been a project that was shelved. And because it was shelved, it's trying to break out.
Ah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's not enough evidence for that, so we didn't elaborate on this. But it could just be that, honestly. Like, this is a show that had so much love poured into it that it somehow became sentient and is trying to will itself to reality, I guess? I mean, I was trying to go for this face, but Freddy Fazbear came out. But that also leaves a question that's more solidified in evidence. What is going on with the black goo?
Yeah, what is that, man?
Because it's a similar substance to what we see underneath Home. And if the idea is that Home is trying to break out into the real world, this goo signifies that, yeah, it's working. So you bring up the idea of why there wasn't like a video paired with the audio of the interview, right?
Yeah.
The idea that I have here is it may not be real. Like, the show itself may be real based on evidence alone, despite what the question and answer says. I'm looking at you. Yeah. It may be a real show, but it didn't go far. And the reason why there was no video was because that may have been fabricated. Like, if you go back to the idea that the Frank image in Purgatory, I'm just gonna call it Purgatory now, is real, and that it was recently made. Like, just play along here, okay? This could mean that other objects in that exhibition may also be new.
Ooh, that's true. Yeah.
Fabricated for one reason or another. And why would that be? To cement the idea that Welcome Home was bigger than we thought. To implement more of the mythos, to implement more of the lore, everything we know about Welcome Home may not be what we knew of what Welcome Home was back when it was airing, because we may not have gotten enough information on it.
True.
It's kind of like it's trying to will itself for us to remember something that was never there.
Oh, I like that. I still like the play on memory in the series so far, in the story so far.
So, like, think of it as kind of, if you guys are Persona fans, it's like the metaverse being influenced and like Home is making its own reality real. Or even with all the information given to us through these means, our subconscious is building an entity of what we think Welcome Home / Home may have been. Kind of like a tulpa.
Oh. Oh, yeah.
Right? Our subconscious, knowing about all of this, is giving shape to home in the real world. And it's working because it may not be like directly towards us, but the staff. The staff are starting to see black goo on the website, black goo in the exhibition. They're hearing stuff, they're seeing stuff. It's working, right?
I like that, yeah.
Yeah.
The final episode theory. This theory revolves around the idea that something went horribly wrong in the final episode of Welcome Home, causing it to be pulled from being on air with no proper conclusion. The footage we see from Wally's perspective is actually from the last episode of Welcome Home, and that Wally isn't regular Wally anymore, but other Wally. And I'm saying that name a lot, and I'm so sorry, but whatever happened on that episode was something unspeakable that either happened on air and it had to be wiped from public consciousness, or the cast and crew themselves witnessed something that they shouldn't have. Evidence number 1. We know that the show was pulled out with no explanation. At least that's what was said. That means there was no proper goodbye, like how most children's shows treat this goodbye on their final episode. They have to have some sort of proper conclusion to everyone's story that kids can understand and think of either as a happily ever after or, yeah, their lives continue after this. But not only was it just pulled, every evidence of its existence was simply lost to time or maybe intentionally destroyed. If we go with the idea that something is trying to crawl out of the weird hellscape under home, then maybe something did go terribly wrong during that episode and all materials related to it, every single thing had to be destroyed for safety reasons. Evidence number 2. Okay, it's cheating using our old theories as evidence, but here's out. Remember that dark mass underneath what we assume to be some demonic presence crawling its way out and using Wally as a host to bring itself into reality? What if that's the thing that went terribly wrong and caused the show to be pulled? Maybe some crazy thing happened on set and it sucked up the cast and crew and turned the people into puppets and it freaked out executive, so they said, oh shit, we have to keep this under wraps and take it down right now. What if that perspective of Wally from the bugs was just his perspective of that episode? And every time it glitched out, the thing was possessing him, maybe, I don't know, and it started to go weird and stuff, and then it got aggressively more weirder, and then it was just stopped. Evidence number 3. Okay, remember that dark mass. Now remember that one storybook recording of Eddie trying to lift everyone? It's in a storybook, yes, but that could have also been translated into an episode. Why is that important? Well, at the end of that audio, we hear that Eddie is dared to lift up home itself. Home! What if that's the led to the thing in the previous evidence, which I understand is somehow also cheating for me to do? What if an innocent little dare, or not so innocent, who knows, led to things blowing up in everyone's faces? If we also consider that some or all of the puppets are being more sentient, would they have wanted this to happen so they can be more alive? I don't know, that was just a last minute thought.
Okay, so that was a recap of what I just said earlier. I didn't know that it was word by word, but I liked your version of it better.
Yeah, it was just me going slowly downward, down.
Yeah,
Yes.
but as I was explaining earlier, that was just in relation to the dual Wally theory. This one, the final episode theory, really adds more to the mystery, specifically of how the climax went before everything shut down, you know?
Yeah.
So the idea is that in the story, Julie dares Eddie lift everything that you can. Heavier, because, like, you know, he's a big buff guy.
Hell yeah, he is.
At a certain point, he lifts everyone all together. Wally seems to be uncomfortable, but everybody is having fun, except for Eddie and Frank. But the conclusion is they all fall down, which can also be kind of seen in the videos, where the ones that we found so far seems to be leading up to that event in the script specifically. So it could have been that those little snippets are what's happening as filming was going on. The storybook concludes with Eddie lifting the house. In the storybook, we don't actually get to see that because he just kind of goes off. But what if the actual episode concludes with him lifting home and whatever was under home gets out?
Oh.
Right? The black ooze comes out, which brings me to another evidence that may or may not be recanonized again, which is the image of a sinister looking Wally rummaging through a black void carrying the lifeless body of Eddie.
Yeah, we don't know if that's canon, but by God is it cool.
Not only is it cool, it adds up. Like, what if that image is the immediate aftermath of other Wally cleaning up the mess Eddie made?
Oh.
they got too close to something that shouldn't have ever been unraveled. This probably was the catalyst to Welcome Home's cancellation. I mean, imagine you're a producer, okay? Imagine you're a producer and you have these puppets, whether they're sentient or not, going around day by day. Your main guy, Wally, acting a little weird, but that's normal, right? And then suddenly, Eddie lifts home and black goo shoots out everywhere. Demons come out, like, you know, weird puppet hands, like, start grabbing people. People turn into puppets, at least I'm assuming. Wouldn't you want to destroy every single piece of evidence ever made that this thing was real because you don't want this, whatever this is, to get out? You know, like, was it just one big cover-up? Was it like, you know, what did the government intervene? You know, I mean, it's that kind of thing. I mean, it's that kind of story where you expect like someone like the SCP Foundation to just barge in eventually, you know?
It's such an anomaly and whatnot.
Not saying that this is part of the SCP Foundation. No, guys, it's not. Put the research down. Put the research down. This isn't part of the SCP Foundation. But it sounds like something that could have been that kind of situation, you know? Like, it's the right amount of anomalous stuff. It's the right amount of tragedy. It's the right amount of hindsight that it just started off as an innocent episode where Eddie lifts everything and suddenly everything comes crashing down.
Just as a note, these are all just theories. They have some plot holes. They end up with us asking more questions and getting answers. They're also a little contradictory to each other in some capacity. I also understand that they kind of went a little bit ham with every possibility under the sun, and we're not really grasping at straws, we're grasping at the floor, trying to crawl at this point, but I'll take it. This update was much larger than anyone would have anticipated, and I'm sure we missed out on a lot since writing and recording this script, but it'd be interesting to see what you guys have in mind. What other theories and details have we missed that may or may not have been obvious? So call us out in the comments.
Also, if there's anything that we missed that you guys want us to cover, because there was a lot. Again, the videos, the audio logs, we're gonna cover that all in the debrief because we're still going through them. If there's other things that we missed, comment below so that we know what to look for as well, okay? So anything we missed and your theories, everything in the description, okay? Everything in the description. I'm looking at you, that one person I shall not name that keeps commenting all their theories. We like your theories. Comment all of them.
All of them. All of them.
But yeah.
We hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you want to see more stuff like this, leave a like and comment what other mysteries, developing and unsolved, you'd like to see us cover. You can also check out our previous video on this right here. We'd also like to thank our members, Butter, Shifter, Mothman, and Neki fans, as well as our cafe producer Nick, for all your support. And if you too would like to help support the channel, consider joining our memberships. And thanks for watching.